Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion for August 1st, 2018. Happy August 1st to you. The sun has returned here at the office. It's great. It's hot and muggy outside. The sun is shining. It's my kind of weather. Finally, we did have some rain overnight, another big dose of rain, but for the most part, it's starting to break up a little bit, so that's awesome. So I'm in a good mood today. So let's see where we are and where we're headed over the next several weeks or so. This is August 1st, and it's right there. I'll try to draw as straight a line following that line as I can. So we have quite a bit of hurricane season left in front of us from a statistical point of view, and there will be some updates to various hurricane seasonal forecasts. I know for sure that Colorado State will be updating theirs tomorrow, and I think that it'll remain in the below the long-term average camp. But nevertheless, climatologically speaking, even in slow years, so to speak, once you get towards the latter part of August through about the mid part of October here, the background state normally responds and you get some activity. And then it's a matter of how much above or below the mean or the average is there. And this is going to be an interesting test of how cold the tropical Atlantic is, and it's a relative term, cold, versus the warm water in the western Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico, etc., that we'll see. You know, you can get most of a hurricane season crammed into the month of September and the first 10 to 15 days of October. Make no mistake about that. Just pointing that out. So the first 10 days of August, the first third or so, going back to 2015, this should get updated. You know, I don't know why they don't update it more than they do, but this goes back to 2015. Over the past, more than 100 years, obviously, you can see, and obviously from 1851 until the 1960s, early part of the 60s, there was really not, there were no satellites back in the 1800s, unless you believe some of the alien conspiracy theorists. But, ship reports and other things back then helped to fill in some of these holes. Obviously, during the satellite era, we got a much better idea of development. And the bottom line is, in August, usually the main development region starts to come to life. You see that there is a big hole in development generally through here. There's 3 or 4, but just kind of take those out because those are very rare, especially considering that time span there. And then a lot of activity in the Gulf, relatively speaking, and then plenty of developments way up here, kind of random in the subtropics. Eastern Pacific has a big cluster here south of the Baja and mainland Mexico, and some out here farther to the west. And this year it doesn't look like that'll deviate from the norm much. I'll show you. We do have a new tropical storm. So let's get to that. It is Hector, and it's located well to the south and west of Mexico, and it's moving off to the west-northwest, and this will strengthen into a hurricane. This is what that looks like on the track map, and with high pressure developing stronger, I guess, to its north, kind of like Irma last year. This will have a bend to the west-southwest. Remember when Irma did that? That's just, this is not going to be an Irma. I'm just saying it's got a similar track. And it's interesting, too, that over the next 5 days, National Hurricane Center not indicating that this becomes a major hurricane. These are all H's, no M's for major. It doesn't mean that it won't, but so far that's not in the forecast. So we'll see. So this is what it looks like on the satellite picture, the animation from the Tropical Tidbits site. There's Hector right there. Very, very well-developed southwest tail, as I like to call it, and very indicative that it's going to just curl up and continue to strengthen and move off to the west for a while. We're going to be tracking this for several days to come. And then off to the east, there's another system that's going to try to develop very slowly over the next several days, and it'll move more in this direction, it seems. We'll take a look at that on the GFS analysis in just a moment. In the meantime, lots of convection over the Gulf of Mexico but nothing organizing. Just lots of thunderstorms plaguing the oil rigs out there. Probably looks pretty neat when you see it, but you got lightning bolts and other things to deal with. But I was thinking this would drop the sea surface temperatures a little bit, so we'll see after this clears out if we do have a reduction in the surface temperatures of the Gulf. All right, so let's take a look at the GFS for the Pacific, and we'll look at the Atlantic in just a minute. You can tell there's not much happening in the Atlantic, so we're focusing on the East Pac for the most part, and really the Pacific wide. Here's the west coast of North America. There's the Baja Peninsula. And then way over here, well, let's see, somewhere in the middle, there's Hawaii right there. Alaska up at the top here. And then you get over here to the western part of the Pacific. There's Japan, parts of it anyway. And so if we put this into motion, this is the next 7 days. I want you to notice, look at that little area of vorticity that's just constant right off the big island of Hawaii. It's always there. Small little area of vorticity. That's interesting. I got to find out why that is. What causes that? Because it's always there. Oh, look, there's a hurricane heading into that general direction at the end of the 5 days, too. That's Hector, and we can see that Hector moves off in the general direction of Hawaii. They typically do not hit Hawaii, the big island especially, from the east. And as you see, Hector starts at day 7, approaching here from the south. There's the big island of Hawaii there, travels all that way. It's not coming in right along from due east. That could change. So this is something that we should keep an eye on. Nothing to be too worried about just yet, with very, very strong ridging up here, and that's clearly evident right here. There's not much reason to think that Hector would come in and then turn through the islands like Aniki did back in 1992, I think it was. This would just keep on off to the west, I would think, into the western Pacific. Maybe this goes all the way across and becomes a typhoon. It just gets a name change, that's all. So this would be fascinating to watch over the next few days, to be honest with you. And maybe some impacts for Hawaii, certainly an increase in waves, maybe some wind. But that's more than a week out, so we'll see how things progress. In the meantime, during that same 7-day time period, we watch right here off the coast of Mexico, and that little system finally gets going, but it's, fairly innocuous overall, not much of a problem. Let's go ahead and kill that panel. So check this out. This is the wide shot encompassing most of the continent of Africa here, the northern part anyway. And intertropical convergence zone, a little bit more active, more convection, upward motion in the atmosphere, thunderstorm activity. We do have some clusters of storms over Africa, widely scattered for the most part. But then look at this right here, this little bubble that has come off. And if we look at that from a different perspective, from the University of Wisconsin site, that is really, really remarkable. I will admit, as much as I enjoy tracking hurricanes and doing field work, and remember, that's where it ends. I don't enjoy the death and destruction and the misery. Unfortunately, you cannot separate the two. And so it's always this double-edged sword. You have a big fascination with something that unfortunately lays waste to the landscape and the people that live on it. But when you see this, as much as I am a tracker of hurricanes, this is absolutely incredible. Look at that Saharan air. It's even created, looks like an outflow boundary is what it looks like. That's just remarkable. And so there's a lot of energy coming out here, and no doubt that this will continue to not allow the sea surface temperatures to warm very much in the main development region. So any of these tropical waves that come off, they are really going to have a hard time developing through this zone right here over the next week to 10 days, and probably longer than that. So that being said, of course, that would get us almost to mid-August. So when will things change? Well, again, we look to those who look down the road, more than 5 to 10 days out. And this is from Ben Knoll. Who is Ben Knoll? Just to refresh your memory, won't let me mouse over. So let's just do this. Get rid of that, and we'll go up here to the top. So Ben Knoll is in New Zealand. He's a meteorologist. Works for the National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research. He's really big into climate science, if I can say it. Climate science and maps. He likes snow days right there. So there's Mr. Ben Knoll way down in New Zealand, and you can see all these different things that he's posted, but this is what stood out to me from the 30th of July. The latest, very latest, ECMWF weeklies continue to show the breakdown of the sinking cell over the Atlantic during early to mid-September. And I know you go, oh, that's a long way. It is, but it appears the pattern is forced in part by the development of cooler than normal sea surface temperatures in the eastern Indian Ocean and maritime continent. So what is this that we're looking at right here? Let me zoom in on it, if Firefox will cooperate. So let me try to explain this, okay? All right, so you have your map here for reference. And so the best way to look at this, this is time, okay? So here is closest to where we are now, and then this is out in the future. And we're looking across this portion of the globe. It's a Mercator projection map. And so, as an example, right now, which is when the model starts, right in here, the ECMWF ensemble prediction scheme, or system, not scheme, that's the ships. This is the ensemble mean 200 millibar velocity potential, and these are anomalies, so these are departures from normal. So basically, where we are now, all of this reddish or orangish, whatever, this indicates pretty solid sinking motion in the atmosphere. It's a cap. And where is that happening? Well, then you go down to your map, and you can say, well, it looks like it's sinking all across this area through here, right? So the tropical Atlantic sinking motion. And so if you could move this along, if this was like a conveyor belt, and you could scroll from bottom to top, this would go off the edge, and then this would move up. Does that make sense? And so the EPS, the Ensemble Prediction System, is seeing that right around the end of August here, this is time, remember, we start to bring in across this area more, well, certainly less this, but more green, and then some pretty anomalous, more so than usual, green. And what does that mean? Green means go, typically. And so this says by the end of August, and then, this continues to move up in time, you would figure that it's going to last for a while. And so this represents several days to weeks right here worth of unfavorable conditions across this region. And then this represents several days and maybe even weeks. We just have to see as this goes through. So I'm going to follow this and might even see if we can get Ben to join us via Skype sometime next week to talk about it. He could be the next guest on Phone a Friend. Remember that? I've talked to a couple people already, so maybe he'll be the next, because this is fascinating to see, and we'll see if it's correct. But the idea that the model continues to show it, because he mentioned it back here on the 26th, and then a few days later, and this shows you, he's added some graphics here to kind of highlight it, that this is all negative for development, and this is more positive. And you can see from the 26th, this was kind of but then he updated it to show the model from the 30th, and right through here, rising motion in the western hemisphere, sinking motion in the maritime continent and Westpac. All right, so August might be rather quiet. Probably would see one or two named storms because it's August. Probably much closer to the land instead of out in the tropical Atlantic. But I don't see anything coming yet, put it that way. But I'm going to remind you one more time, you can cram a lot of hurricane season into September and parts of October. Make no mistake. I want to just, there's going to be this flood of, hurricane season is predicted to be below average. And I just know how people are. Yes, it's generally good news, that there are less chances of bad hurricanes happening. Sure, I get that. But people take that to mean no hurricanes. Some of them do. I'll see people once in a while. I'll just end on this, my little soapbox. I'll see somebody every once in a while when that's predicted, and the same goes true when it's predicted to be a busy season. But for now, I'll see somebody at the grocery store that knows me and knows my work, and they'll, hey, Mark, you're probably not going to have much to do this year, are you? I hear it's going to be a dead season. And you're like, well, nobody said that, and I have to explain it. Well, it only takes one, and yeah, I know, but doesn't look too promising out there right now. And so I just wonder, what do people think that aren't as in tuned as that person? You know what I'm saying? You got to just be careful. Anyway, and the opposite's true. When it's supposed to be busy, then people think that, every hurricane that forms will hit the U.S., and that's also not true. Always a challenge. But anyway, that's what we do here, is try to look at what's happening, as I call it, open the window, look outside, and take a gander at what's really going on out there. I don't rely on the computer models too much in terms of being gospel. They can be a great guideline, and some of them are better than others. We saw how that's working out with the El Nino, etc., and so forth. So quiet for the next several days. We'll keep an eye on Hector, and if it does threaten Hawaii, yes, I will be on a plane to Hawaii. I'll just go ahead and put that out there right now. So we shall see. Maybe the first, I'm not even going to go there. We'll see. I'm going to get in trouble. All I got to do is get on a plane and I'm in Hawaii, 14 hours later. I'll just say that. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I'll be back tomorrow with more. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. I do appreciate it very much, and we'll talk some more tomorrow.